Yesterday I was here at our church talking with a mother whose daughter, who's a young adult, is very sick with the coronavirus, and she's barely been able to sleep at night as she worries about her daughter struggling so badly. And can you imagine being a pastor of a church and knowing about all of these different people with all their different burdens and struggling and all the pressure of all that? Some pastors struggle so deeply with all those burdens that they just crash and burn. I'm the son of a pastor who crashed and burned really badly. And so I read with great interest this story this morning. A man named Maltbie Babcock. He was the kind of guy who was just super charismatic personality. Everybody loved him. Very, very gifted, amazing preacher. Loved by people from all social classes. In his first pastorate, which was in Lockport, New York, that's up in that Niagara Falls area, he would regularly go out, and this is his quote. He said, "I'm going to go out and see my Father's world." And he would go for runs or walks. He was able to, on this one hill, look out over Lake Ontario, and he talked about this bird sanctuary where there were all these different kinds of birds that he would just love to watch. Well, Maltbie's success as a pastor took him to several other churches, and they kind of kept getting larger and larger, and of course the pressures got greater and greater. At one point, he actually was hospitalized for depression, and this is somebody who was just wildly successful at what he was doing. But what's interesting is that the writer, Ernest Murian, who wrote this book, Living Stories of Famous Hymns, he says that Maltbie's journeys out into nature became fewer and fewer and happened less and less frequently as his ministry went on. Not only was he hospitalized for depression at one point, he actually, when he was just 42, on a trip over to Italy, contracted this disease, brucellosis, I believe it's called, and it actually leads not only to pain, but also depression itself, and perhaps maybe even committed suicide while he had that disease and died at just 42 years of age. And again, the writer Murian says, I wonder if he had kept that regular rhythm up of going out, as he said, I'm going to go out to see my Father's world. I wonder if he had kept that rhythm up his whole life and throughout all those pressures of ministry, if perhaps he would have been able to deal a little bit better with those bouts of depression and struggle, the intense struggles of ministry. Again, as a son of someone who had those same intense struggles, I've always lived aware that ministry could lead me into those kinds of struggles as well. And I believe one of the things that's helped me, maybe more than many other things, came through the influence of my wife, who grew up in the mountains, and she introduced me to the beauty of God's creation. And I want to just give two examples of that I'm going to challenge you to experience sometime soon. And they're two things that were very special to Maltbie: water and birds. I don't know about you, but when I'm in the presence of water, there's something that just happens to me. God created it, and when I'm around a lot of it, it's almost like the frenetic pace that I usually am on is just quieted. It's almost like my soul is stilled. It's like tire pressure in a tire has been put in at too great a level, and then when I'm around that water, it's like something just lets out some of that pressure until it's back to the amount that it's supposed to be so that tire can function properly. Or take birds. I spent the first half of my life not even really realizing birds were there. And then all of a sudden, in my 20s and 30s and on, I've just become just so fascinated, especially for me, the larger birds like the heron, my mother-in-law's favorite. When I look at those birds, there's something about God's beauty and his agility and his freedom that is just spoken to me. So here's what we're going to do this morning. I'm going to play a hymn that Maltbie wrote. He wrote this poem, And I'm going to pray that it might just take you to a place. Maybe you might even want to close your eyes this morning and just imagine the things that he wrote about and that I'm going to be praying about. And then at the end, I'm actually going to challenge you to go and experience some of that creation sometime soon. But for these next few moments, maybe you close your eyes, maybe just do something so you can just really focus in and let your imagination take you into the beauty of God's creation and experience what Maltbie did on many occasions in God's creation. This is my Father's world, he wrote. And to my listening ears, will you listen this morning? To my listening ears, all nature sings and round me rings the music of the spheres. This is my Father's world. I rest me in the thoughts of rocks and trees, of skies and seas. His hand the wonders wrought. And would you let your mind and heart go to the beauty of God's creation? This is my Father's world. The birds their carols raise. The morning lights, the lily whites, declare their Maker's praise. This is my Father's world. He shines in all that's fair. In the rustling grass, I hear him pass. He speaks to me everywhere. And isn't that exactly what we're trying to do this morning? To let our heart and mind go to those times when we've seen God's beautiful creation. He's speaking everywhere, not just in our books or in our Facebook lives. He speaks to us through the creation that he created himself. And so let him speak to you this morning. This is my Father's world. Oh, let me never forget that though the wrong seems oft so strong, God is the ruler yet. This is my Father's world. The battle is not done. Jesus who died shall be satisfied, and earth and heaven be one. We live in a time in the middle of Jesus' first coming and his second coming when all things will be one. Would you let God's presence fill you this morning through the beauty of his creation? Now, perhaps you are like me and you spent a lot of your life not really experiencing the beauty of God's creation or not really enjoying it in the way that God intended for us to enjoy it. Or perhaps you did that a long time ago, but to be honest, life has just gotten so crazy that you, like Maltbie, have gotten out of the habit of going and enjoying God and His creation. Either way, I'm going to challenge you. Sometime this week, would you plan a time to get outside and just marvel at God's creation? May it lead you to the kind of worship and life of worship that these words inspire. This is my Father's world, and to my listening ears would you listen? All nature sings, and round me rings the music of the spheres. May God bless you as you worship Him today.